Hello again. You reached Zach Baby TV, and this is the book review of Attack of the Mutant, number 25, that came out, Goosebumps, which is my favorite story of all time. It's a great story. Came out in 1994. Basically, it's about a kid who was really into comic books. His name was Skipper Matthews, and his whole life surrounded around the Mass Mutant comic book. He collected the Silver Surfer and all kinds of other stuff, but this particular villain he was obsessed about. And with Attack of the Mutant is he's late for an orthodontist appointment, gets on the city bus, meets a girl named Libby Zax, misses his bus stop, freaks out, rings the bell, gets off the bus. He sees the exact building, the secret headquarters of the Mass Mutant, across the street. And he's mind blown. He just can't believe himself. Anyways, so he was about to go inside. Libby's freaked out. No, no, no. But he's curious. I'd be curious too. I would have went inside. So from there, went home. Went back again. It disappeared. He's freaking out. Gets a comic book in the mail saying that he slipped an invisibility curtain around it, so the League of Good Guys couldn't find where his secret headquarters was. So he's like, oh crap, could this be real? One day it's here, a week later, he goes back and the place is gone. Eventually goes inside, and a beam of light hits him, and all his molecules turn into tiny dots of ink. Later on, he finds out that he becomes a comic book character himself, and that he's no longer human and real. And he faces the Mass Mutant. What I think is funny is the Galloping Gazelle, the fastest man in the solar system. Skipper actually saves him because he's tied up in a boiler room. And the dude gets his butt whooped and ditches the kid. And I'm like, okay, this is the leader of a superhero squad. He's going to leave a 12-year-old boy to defend himself against the Mass Mutant. That was something that was kind of like, they probably could have did something different with that as far as writing the story, because I don't think any grown man would leave a child in harm's way, especially if you're a superhero. So I found that kind of iffy. You're on your own, kid. So I was like, whoa, okay. But Skipper Matthews tricks the Mass Mutant. Actually, he tricks him first by showing up. Actually, it's Libby the whole time. He doesn't find out that the Mass Mutant is actually Libby Zax until the end. She pulls out a plastic gun when they confront the Mass Mutant, because she shows up in the headquarters, right after the Galloping Gazelle ditches the kid. She shows up, and she's like, where were you? I was looking for you. I followed you across the street, yada yada. And she doesn't really know who the Mass Mutant is, so she doesn't know that he's a villain or anything yet. So she pulls out a gun and says, back away, or there's a molecule melter, and leave this room or I'm going to melt all your molecules. And, he's like, whatever. That's just what you plan to do with that toy. So she presses it, a beam comes out, and sure enough, he melts. Skipper's like freaking out. How in the hell did a toy destroy the most evil villain ever? And then come to find out, she's like, I hate to break the news to you, Skipper, but there is no Libby. And as she said that, she transformed, her eyes darkened, her cheeks widened, and boom, you got the Mass Mutant in your face. And even Skipper's still stunned. He's still calling him Libby. What are you doing, Libby? And he's like, you don't catch on very fast, do you, kid? I'm the Mass Mutant, Skipper. I changed my molecules into a girl your age and called myself Libby. So from there, he's freaking out. And then luckily, Skipper Matthews makes up some superhero name, and he's like, you can't tear me into tiny pieces, because I'm the Colossal Elastic Boy. And he's like, Elastic Boy? I thought you looked familiar. And he's like, goodbye, Mass Mutant. Where you going? Back to my home planet of Zorgos. I'm not allowed to guest star in other comic books. And basically, the Mass Mutant corners him and says, you can't leave. You found out my secret headquarters. Now I must destroy you. And after that, he tells him, I'm the Colossal Elastic Boy. You can't tear me to shreds. You can't destroy me. There's only one way that Elastic Boy can be destroyed. And the Masked Mutant's like, what's that? And he's like, by sulfuric acid. That's the only thing that could destroy my elastic body. Oops. So the Masked Mutant, laughs and changes into a huge wave of sulfuric acid, missing him by inches, as Skipper actually dodged the bullet, if you want to say. And the funny thing is that reading the comic books, Skipper actually knows that the Masked Mutant could change into anything solid. He could change his molecules. He could become a table. He could be a light post. He could be anything solid. Another person. But he can't change into a liquid. And that's where this guy failed. He wasn't thinking straight when he was changing. He was just wanting to kill this kid real quick, out of amusement, because he doesn't care. He's evil. And he changed himself into a liquid, regardless of what it was, whether it was sulfuric acid, whether it was water, milk, Pepsi, it don't matter. He couldn't reform himself, so eventually he dies. And that's how Skipper survived the Masked Mutant in his wrath. Now, this book is awesome. The audio tape is completely based off of this book, which is what I love. The audio tape in this book is amazing. I grew up listening to this. I've read the book 2 or 3 times growing up. And I really wish that R.L. Stine would have made a second book of this, like a sequel, like Return of the Mutant or something. He did for Monster Blood and Night of the Living Dummy and The Haunted Mask. Now, Night of the Living Dummy, that was okay. I think after part 2 they should have stopped. Monster Blood, I was cool with part 1, and part 2 was okay. And with the Haunted Mask, hell yeah. I mean, they could have kept going with that. But comparing the two here, completely different. Can you see me? The book versus the TV show. That is what's really important. There's a lot of lines that are in here that are not in here. Now take it. They did make a 2-part story to this, part 1 and part 2, so it was a good 45-minute long story. But there was a lot of stuff that they changed in here that was not in here. I mean, for instance, his friend Wilson in the book was a rubber stamp collector. In here, he collected rocks. His friend Wilson was a good-looking blonde boy that made him feel like a small, chubby, pudgy person, and he would be the sidekick. Here, they're both nerdy. Completely. I mean, there's a lot of lines that are in here that are not here, especially from the dad. The stuff that the dad says at the beginning of this was completely different from this. Even in the kitchen. Here, you gotta fix the stove. Mom and Dad were too busy to see Skipper inside of the Masked Mutant's actual comic book, thinking, did you write a letter to the editor? And here, they were cutting onions, and Mom was too busy reading a love story book. A lot of stuff different. Took the 14 bus to Franklin to get to the secret headquarters when he was going to go to his orthodontist appointment, then to the comic book store. He said that to the Galloping Gazelle when he asked how he found the place. And here, he simply replied, I just took the bus. The magnificent molecule man that Libby melted with the plastic gun, which was really the Masked Mutant in disguise the whole time, is not here. When Skipper first confronts the Masked Mutant, he disappears and Libby shows up behind the door behind him. And that's when she changes. Completely different from this. A lot of different shit. But, all in all, it was great to have a visual for this amazing book. Number 1 in my book, A lot of people like The Werewolf of Fever Swamp, another great one. A lot of people are die-hard Slappy fans, and more power to them. I thought it was cool. Wasn't really my thing, honestly. The whole dummy thing. It was good, but it wasn't like my favorite book. It wasn't my favorite type of story, because I collected comics when I was younger, and I've always liked superhero movies and stuff like that. So I think I was drawn to this more than anything else, just because of who I was growing up and what I was into. A Night in Terror Tower was another great book. I'll probably do a top 10 on my next video and just say why. But this pretty much concludes Attack of the Mutant. If you have any questions or concerns, or you just want to voice your opinion at all, just go ahead and shoot me a comment, and I will definitely reply. Until next time.